Hello, welcome. Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony, welcome back. It's Friday, April 15th, tax day, not to get you scared or anything. And I want to talk about Mars retrograde. Mars is going to go retrograde on Sunday, the 17th, all the way through June 29th. So it's a pretty long retrograde period for Mars. We're usually familiar with Mercury retrograde. That happens 3 times a year for 3 weeks. Mars retrograde, on the other hand, happens about once every 25 months, so just a little over 2 years. So it's not something that happens very frequently, and it's usually going to be in a different part of the chart it was last time, and you don't usually repeat these patterns for a couple of decades. So it's where Mars is retrograding this time around isn't something we've dealt with for a long time. And so that's what's important here, because we want to talk about what we're dealing with. And especially if you watched my last video talking about the eclipses and a preview of this Mars retrograde. We're through the eclipses, congratulations. It was pretty intense, I thought. I think, and that was in March. I think it was March 8th and March 23rd for the eclipses. And so if you had an experience like I did, it was pretty intense. It was a lot of shifts going on, some unexpected, and that's okay. But what it did was, the whole point of those eclipses was to create a release so that things could come up that need to go, and then create this opportunity for an inflood of new energy. And if we haven't felt the inflood of new energy, that's okay. If you haven't felt it yet, if you have, good for you. But in the next few months, we'll definitely all be feeling what is now coming in because of what we released in March. So March was, the eclipses that happened, that eclipse in Pisces was necessary, absolutely necessary to just kind of cut open those final wounds so that we can make room, okay? And so what we've made room for, like I said, we might not have felt it yet, but it is on its way if we haven't felt it yet. And Mars retrograde, this period coming up, here again from April 17th, this Sunday, through June 29th, very good period for reassessing our action in the world. So taking a step back from our projects or refining our projects. It doesn't mean we can't go forward with projects that already exist. It's actually a great time for trial and error. So if we've created something and we've given it a try before, it's a great time to rearrange the title or rearrange your core audience and that kind of thing. Figure out what might work and what doesn't work. So trial and error is great for Mars retrograde. So I don't want you to think that we can't do anything because Mars is doing energy. So when doing energy pulls back, the immediate interpretation is that we shouldn't do anything. But we definitely can take advantage of this time period for refining, reorganizing, and kind of rehashing our approach to the world with our projects and our ideas and things like that. And then once Mars goes forward here in late June, especially when we get from July through August, it's all systems go. So whatever we have refined in this time period, the next couple of months, we'll really know exactly where to point our arrows in a way. So think of it like the Mars retrograde here coming up is just pulling back our arrows and aiming. And we're not committing to where we're going to shoot it because we're conserving our arrows. We don't want to waste our arrows. We don't want to waste our energy. Okay? So it's okay to, like I said, to address and refine things that are already going on. That's great. And Mars energy also has to do with kind of our assertiveness in the world, and that can come into play with how we approach our job, how we approach other people. And so we might be realizing that we need some revision to that. And I can almost felt like when I said that word revision, I could feel reverberation, like people hearing what I mean by that. And that is this idea that how we've been trying to approach a situation that we want to happen, it isn't working. And now we realize we have to take a different route. We have to try a different way, okay? And so as far as timing goes for this, starting around February 17th, this is when Mars entered the shadow period for this retrograde. So since February 17th, so just about 2 months ago, it's April 15th now, so for the last 8 or 9 weeks, we've been in the shadow zone of Mars retrograde, this pending Mars retrograde. So things we've tried to make an approach toward in this period. So think back to mid-February. Up until now, what were we trying to make happen? And what was our approach? And so what we're going to start realizing here as as Mars goes retrograde, I want to say Mercury because it's usually Mercury retrograde, but as Mars goes retrograde, here this Sunday, we're going to start realizing, okay, whatever I'm doing isn't working. What will work? And this is where trial and error comes into play. So we're playing with how we can make an approach toward what this whatever we're desiring, whatever we're wanting, whatever we're efforting towards that hasn't produced the results we want in the last 8 to 9 weeks. We'll start to figure out, okay, maybe this can work, maybe that can work, all right? And so that's going to happen through the end of June. And it's when we get, and if you saw the camera move there, that was the dog hitting the tripod. Thanks a lot, Lucky. She's under here, you can't see her. But anyway, it wasn't an earthquake or anything. This is San Diego. We don't get too many earthquakes here, but that wasn't an earthquake. And so, what was I saying? Yeah, so in July and August, when Mars goes direct, this is when we'll have a better sense of, you know, why what we were doing wasn't working in the first place from February to April, and what things definitely won't work. There's these new efforts that we've tried in, say, April, May, and June, and what will work and what we're going to go with. And so July, August, we're saying, all right, it's all, like I said, all systems go, and we're knowing exactly where to aim our arrow, and we're confident in our release point, knowing that we're shooting our arrows in the most effective way possible, the most efficient way possible to land exactly where we want to land. Okay, and so just understand that these next couple of months, it's a great time to revise, a great time to use some trial and error. If we get on ourselves for not accomplishing what we want to accomplish, because that can be a temptation to think we've always got to be in the masculine mode of accomplishing and doing. And so when Mars goes retrograde, it's really a time for the feminine nature to come up. It's a time for us to take care of ourselves, take a rest, take a break, take a breather. Understand that it'll be a better time to go forward later. It's almost like having a broken ankle or something, and you're forced to just have to chill and just, all right, I can't go running for a while, so I'm just not going to. And the things you're able to do because of that, you know, are things you wouldn't address otherwise. So think of this Mars retrograde as this great opportunity, if you're working on a project, to just see what isn't working with it, see why it hasn't been so successful, and be okay with the fact that you're figuring it out right now. Because know that if we take the time to address our situations with this perception of the energy, that by July and August we will be moving forward very strongly. Okay, so that if it's a project, if it's a relationship we're after, or if it's, you know, whatever this thing we're trying to make happen, this is the energy of the ebb and flow of it. Just think of the tides coming in and out. And just know that February to April is a time to introduce us to what we'll be revising. This period from mid-April to the end of June is a time to do the trial and errors for a new way. And then July into August is a time to now, you know, go with where we're shooting our arrows and kind of just go with it from there. And this is Lucky saying hello. She likes to say hello when I do these now. It's like she knows. But anyway, so that's the general timeline of Mars retrograde. As far as the specific energies that's happening with this one is covering the zone from about 23 degrees Scorpio till about 9, almost 10 degrees Sagittarius, okay? And so it's a pretty, you know, it's about 16 degrees or so, 16, 17 degrees of the Zodiac that Mars has gone through from February to April. It's going to go backwards through those 17 degrees from 9 degrees Sagittarius back to 23 degrees Scorpio, and that will be the period from now to late June, and then it's going to go through that zone again one final time, July into August, or it'll finally exit August 22nd. So February 17th to August 22nd, it's about a 6-month period. That's the entire period of the shadow, where Mars entered the zone, goes retrograde through the zone, and then exits the zone. So that's taking about 6 months, and we're about 2 months into that 6-month period. And we're entering the phase of the backward motion. That's all we're in now. And so it's this area of our chart. So wherever 23 degrees Scorpio to 9 degrees Sagittarius is in your chart, that's the part of our lives essentially that's getting rehashed. So we're reconsidering our actions in that part of life, okay? How we're taking action in that part of life. And so generally speaking, Scorpio and Sagittarius, regardless of your chart, Sagittarius is this energy of going forward, going for it, you know, 2 feet in, you know, kind of an energy, expanding beyond our comfort zone. I don't know it, but I'm gonna try it out anyway. Scorpio, before Sagittarius, is this energy of release before we can do that. It's similar almost to what the eclipse energy was like, where we had an eclipse that was about release and opening, another eclipse about allowing. And so both of those eclipses are active over this entire period until the end of the summer. So that energy of releasing and welcoming in the new is with us throughout this entire Mars retrograde. And so it's interesting that the Mars retrograde has a similar energy of, again, digging in and figuring out what has been holding us back from taking charge in our lives, going directly in the direction we want without the hang-ups and hold-ups. And Scorpio allows us to see what those hold-ups are, see how we're self-sabotaging, okay? And if we think back to last year, most of 2015, Saturn, the heavy planet of reality and you know, the physical world and the things we have to deal with, even if we don't want to deal with them, that was in this zone. It actually retrograded in this zone of late Scorpio, early Sagittarius, right where Mars is now. And so this Mars retrograde is covering that area and plus a little bit more on each end, okay? But it will be going over those areas. And in fact, it already started. So the first 3 weeks of March, so right when the first eclipse happened in March, that was right in the middle of the period when Mars was going over the zone in late Scorpio, early Sagittarius, where Saturn was last year. And last year, if you remember, 2015, it was all about bringing up those that sort of the dark side of ourselves, the part we can't get rid of, but we have to integrate in order to move forward, and it's that sort of reluctance to do so, and that heaviness associated with it. With Mars covering this zone, what this is saying is that this is now a time to go forward despite that darkness, despite that shadow side of ourselves, and incorporate it, integrate it, and actually use it as part of what we're offering, you see? And so it's taking what felt heavy last year, what felt like parts of ourselves didn't want to know about or share with others, and making it a part of our project, a part of our impulses toward what we're trying to create. And so think of the first 3 weeks of March this year, bringing that back up. Think about any disappointments that might have come up in the first 3 weeks of March, things that made us think low of ourselves in ways that 2015 really brought up a lot, often. 2015 was all about just like the final like clear out of our stuff so that we can move forward in 2016. And now Mars is about moving forward with that stuff. So we have to rehash what it is so we can make sure we're specific about bringing it forward. Okay, so we don't want to just let it go. We want to say, oh yeah, we brought it up last year, now let's use it. And that's what this Mars is about, using it. And so we want to use it. We want to take it with us. Okay, so the first 3 weeks of March brought it up. As we hit the retrograde, you know, the retrograde again is April 17th to June 29th, but it will be on that zone where Saturn was last year from about, I think it's like late May. Yeah, mid to late May. So the last couple of weeks of May. So we'll see it backing up from Sagittarius back into Scorpio. I think it goes back into Scorpio on May 27th. And so the period from probably like May 15th-ish to like maybe the first couple of days of June, it's going to be in the zone where Saturn was retrograding all of last year. And so what was brought up in the first 3 weeks of March looked to mid to late May to be a time to deal with it in a way. To deal with it and to try to deal with it in a new way. So whatever wasn't working as far as what actions we're taking. The actions we were taking in the first part of March, we were kind of being reminded again of our shadow as we took the action, and we might have felt low about ourselves and whatnot. And maybe it was because we were taking action in a way that no longer works for us. So in mid to late May, we're going to be kind of faced with the same thing, similar situation, only we're going to be asked to do some trial and error. You know, so this is going to be some trial and error about new ways to move through our junk in a way, okay? And some of them might work, some of them might not work. And then, you know, once Mars goes direct June 29th, it will then re-enter that zone from late Scorpio to early Sagittarius, where Saturn was last year, from I think the last couple of days of July right on through the middle of August. And so there'll be about a 2 to 3 week period there, very late July, early to mid-August, that will be almost, you know, showing us, okay, early to mid-March, here's what we did wrong. Mid to late May, here's what we learned that may work and may not work. And here we are in late July, early to mid-August, doing what works and approaching that project the exact way we need to, hitting that bullseye exactly how we want to, with the arrow aimed exactly where we need to, you know, pushing that that partnership forward that we were trying to push forward in March that couldn't move forward at that time because of the actions that were being taken. That didn't work. And in mid to late May, again, finding out, trial and error, finding out what could work. So we'll be looking back in late July, early August, at our sort of a review of what worked and didn't work throughout these last several months. Okay, so it's not something to get discouraged about. This period, it can feel a little bit like we're being held back, but just embrace that. Embrace the fact that you get a chance to hold back, that we get a chance to perfect and aim correctly, so that we're not wasting arrows. We don't want to waste arrows on projects or people that are a waste of our time, right? So we want to make sure that we're aimed correctly. Okay, and on top of that, not to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not really bad news, but the idea of retrograding, Mercury will actually go retrograde here, contained entirely within this Mars retrograde period. So again, Mars retrograde is April 17th to June 29th. Mercury retrograde will be about April 28th, so about 2 weeks after Mars goes retrograde here on Sunday, so about 2 weeks from now. And then that will last about May 22nd. And May 22nd will be right in the middle of that time when we're trial and error, going through trial and error for how we're taking action. So that's gonna be in the sign of Taurus, which is a very practical, grounded energy. So everything we're doing, especially in May, especially this like April into May, is take it easy, take it slow, don't rush it, don't push anything forward that isn't ready to go forward. In other words, don't release any arrows unless you're sure it's aimed correctly, unless you're sure you want to aim it at what you're aiming at. These are the things we're figuring out the next couple of months, so just give ourselves that time. I can't reiterate that that enough. Is just give ourselves that time to do that, because this is our time. And I think we're going to see a lot of things pop up in May that will challenge us to have to, again, try and error, but also try and succeed. And we'll have by the time we get to July and August, we're going to be happy we went through this period. But I expect May to be a fun month, I think. It feels fun, if we look at it that way at least. So but just understand there's a lot of reorganization, a lot of redoing, a lot of rethinking, rehashing, whatever word you want to use. A lot of that going on with Mars and Mercury retrograde. So anyway, that is all I have for today. I just wanted to give you that tidbit. Be ready for this Mars retrograde, with the rehashing of Saturn from 2015 and what that taught us, as well as Mercury retrograde occurring right in with it. And it's all in this time period of embracing what the eclipses have opened up for us. So that is a look at what's going on now. Thank you for joining me, and I will be back next time, and I will see you then. Thanks a lot.